My name is Eric, and I am 45 years old today. 10 years ago, I went through a divorce that shook me to my core and, in many ways, defined a large part of my life. I have followed this thread where someone, who, as I understand it, is in an almost identical situation, has asked for advice, and I feel compelled to share my story. It is not pretty, and it is not funny, but it is true, and hopefully it can serve as support or a wake-up call for anyone facing a similar crossroads. I also want to say that I do not hold any universal solutions. My decision at that time was mine, and all relationships are unique. But maybe you can pick up something from my story. I was 35 years old when I first sensed that something was wrong with my then wife, Anna, who was 39 at the time. She and I had met 5 years earlier when we both worked in the same city. Even though we never worked at the same company, we moved in roughly the same circles, and at a joint after-work event on a Friday evening we ran into each other. I remember that even then I felt, wow, this woman has a drive and a confidence that is unusual. She was a few years older than me, with a PhD in microbiology and already established at a large pharmaceutical company. I myself had just left university with a bachelor's degree in computer science and had worked for about a year as an IT consultant, still somewhat green in my career. I was attracted to her self-assurance. She was not arrogant, but she was goal-oriented and could discuss everything from politics to pop culture with a burning intensity. I fell quite quickly, honestly. She was also very direct and encouraging toward me. When we met during that after work, event, she asked me straight out if I wanted to join her for a walk around the block to get some fresh air. And when we stood there on the street in the cold air, she leaned in and kissed me. I hadn't exactly expected it, but it felt completely natural. We went back in, finished our drinks, and decided to meet again a few days later. After that, it was basically us. Anna was already 4 years older than me then. She was 34, and I was 30. It feels so strange to think back, because in my eyes she was the stable, experienced, and mature one. I saw myself as a guy with ambitions but lacking real experience of the adult world and all its rules. She guided me in many ways, and I was deeply in love. After a couple of years, when she was 36 and I was 32, we got married. I remember the wedding as one of the most wonderful things I have experienced. We were not that many, just the closest family and a few close friends, but there was so much love in the air that it brought tears to my eyes. I truly believed that I had found my soulmate, my life partner whom I would grow old with. The following years passed in a happy symbiosis of everyday life and careers. Anna had advanced quickly at the pharmaceutical company and already held a fairly high managerial position when we got married. I felt that she was respected by her colleagues, and I was genuinely proud of her. Every time we attended company parties or similar events, I noticed how people looked up to her. She had the ability to lead projects and people firmly yet without being mean or dictatorial. Personally, I advanced slowly but steadily within the IT consulting world. I was perhaps never the most outgoing or hungriest consultant in the group, but I did my job conscientiously and received good feedback from clients. For a long time, I felt completely satisfied with how things were. We had no children, it was not in our plans at the time, but we were happy in our relationship as it was. It was around the time Anna turned 38, which was about a year after the wedding, that things started to happen at her job. She had become responsible for a large research project and gained more influence in product development. The company had 2 major facilities, one in our hometown and one in a city about 3 hours drive away. Because she had now become something of a project manager for both facilities, she had to start commuting between them. Initially, it was just now and then, an overnight stay here, a couple of days there. But very soon, within maybe 6 months, she was commuting every other week. I did think it was unfortunate to be apart from her, but I really tried to support her. I was proud that she had been given so much responsibility. When she started staying away overnight regularly, I sometimes called in the evenings to ask how her day had been and to say goodnight. The first few months it worked fine to get hold of her, even if she was sometimes late from the lab or departmental meetings. But the longer time went on, the harder it became to get in touch. She often complained about poor reception, late meetings, and being completely exhausted by the time she got back to her hotel room. More and more often, she only sent texts, "I'm really tired, we'll talk tomorrow," or "Meeting ran late, let's talk later." I didn't think too much about it at first, I understood that she was busy at work. Another thing I noticed was that her mood at home became a bit more erratic. When she came home after a few days in the other city, she could sometimes be distant, absent, as if her thoughts were elsewhere. If I asked what was wrong, she mostly said there was a lot of stress at work and that she needed to unwind. I believed it. I am basically a person who wants to think well of people, especially my own wife. But I admit that a kind of gnawing worry started to take hold of me. Call it intuition or whatever you like. It was around this time, about a year into the commuting, that a strange incident occurred. Anna had come home late on a Thursday evening, and when she walked in the door, she looked tired. She asked me to help unpack her suitcase because she wanted to take a shower and then go to bed. I opened the suitcase and began pulling out clothes. That was when I saw a folded piece of paper in a side pocket. I thought maybe it was a receipt or some note from work, but I was wrong. It was a handwritten note that read something like, "Thanks for yesterday. I miss you already." And it was signed with a man's name, Marcus. It was not a typical scribbled work note like "Don't forget report X" or something like that. It was clearly a love note. I felt a cold stab in my stomach, as if something had suddenly broken inside me. I could practically hear my blood rushing in my ears, and I felt dizzy. But I refrained from confronting her that evening. I put the note back in the suitcase, exactly as I had found it, and continued unpacking. My heart was pounding hard, but I kept playing along. I wanted to know more before I said anything. She came out of the shower, we exchanged a few words, and then she went to bed. I pretended to rummage around in the kitchen to get some water, but really just to gather my thoughts. When I also went to bed, my mind was in total chaos. I tried to read her facial expression, but she just looked tired. Maybe she was also acting. I couldn't sleep properly that night. The next day I got up early and tried to act normal. I took a cup of coffee from her and wondered if she would mention anything about the note, but she said nothing. As soon as she left for work, I started looking for more signs. I felt like a bad person for rummaging through her drawers, her dresser, and searching the bathroom for anything that could confirm or disprove my suspicions. But I found nothing. It was all clean. In the following weeks, I decided to check her phone and computer whenever I had the chance. However, Anna was very cautious. She probably erased all messages and call logs on an ongoing basis. I also started to think more about her behavior. I noticed that she often had her phone on silent when she was at home, placed face down on the table, as if she didn't want me to see if someone was messaging her. I felt a growing knot of suspicion in my chest, but I continued to piece together the puzzle and tried to keep a facade. Why didn't I confront her immediately? Honestly, I don't know. Maybe because I basically hoped there was an innocent explanation, or maybe because I didn't want to risk wrecking the marriage over a misunderstanding. But deep down I understood that something was very wrong. A few weeks later, I took a half day off on a day when I knew she was in the other city. I had seen in her calendar, she used to have a paper calendar for an overview, that she would be there for a full day meeting and spend the night. I got in my car and drove the 3 hours. I thought I would go to the usual hotel where she stayed, but something inside me said I should double check. Maybe she had switched hotels. So I simply called her usual hotel, introduced myself as Eric who needs to reach her, and asked if she had checked in. The girl at the reception said that Anna had no reservation that week. I hung up, and my heart pounded. Where had she gone? Instead, I called her boss's secretary. We had met at some Christmas party, so we weren't complete strangers. I played ignorant and said, "Hi, I can't reach Anna, I need to know which hotel she's staying at in X city in case it's urgent." And the secretary then mentioned another hotel, a bit outside downtown. I booked a room at the same hotel. Once there, I parked my car some distance away, went in, and tried to act inconspicuous. I got the key to my own room, then I went back outside and sat in my car to watch. After a couple of hours of waiting, I saw her. She came out of the lobby, closely followed by a man I had never seen before. They looked very comfortable with each other, laughing and walking with their hands quite close. I couldn't see if they were holding hands, but there was clearly some form of intimacy between them. They walked out onto the street and seemed to stand there chatting before walking on. I sat there, silently in my car, feeling like I was in one of those bad movies you sometimes see on TV, but this was real. And it was about my wife. I didn't know what to do. My first impulse was to get out of the car and shout, "What the hell are you doing?" But I bit my lip hard and forced myself to wait. I followed them on foot at a distance as they entered a restaurant. I passed by the windows, looking inside. They had sat down at a table and were talking, looking so relaxed. Later that evening, I saw them return to the hotel, whereupon they disappeared inside. I assumed they went to her room or maybe his. I felt terrible, but I stayed in my car, in this horrible, nauseating feeling of betrayal and disgust. I remember driving home in the middle of the night, tears burning behind my eyelids. My whole world was turned upside down. In the days that followed, I went on social media to see if I could find this man. The note was my only clue. Sure enough, I found a Marcus who worked at a research park near the other city. When I checked Anna's Facebook, she was sometimes logged into our shared computer. I saw that she did not have him among her friends there. But something told me she likely had another profile. I searched and found an account with the same profile picture of her but under a different last name, quite newly started, with a completely different circle of friends, including this Marcus. They openly seemed to like each other's pictures, and I felt my stomach twist. She had literally created a parallel identity to be able to have him in her life, without me or any of our mutual friends seeing it. I walked around in a fog. I had always believed that we had open communication. I was so proud of her accomplishments and thought we were a team. Now I sat there with black and white proof, she was lying to me and cheating on me. After a few more sleepless nights, having gathered my courage and evidence, I decided to confront her. I had taken photos of them at the hotel, not very sharp, but sufficient. I also had a screenshot of her other Facebook profile. I put everything in a folder on my computer, ready to present. She came home from yet another week of commuting about a week after I had been there and seen them together. I waited until she had settled a bit. We ate dinner, she was fairly quiet and seemed preoccupied. I had a lump in my throat and was afraid I might burst into tears at any moment. Finally, when I had gathered myself enough, I said outright, "Anna, we need to talk." She was stiff in her gaze when I began to ask about how her week had been, if she had late meetings every night, etc. She tried at first to dismiss it, saying she had been very busy at work, with an important presentation, and so on. But I felt my anger growing. I said that I had found a note in her suitcase from Marcus and that it didn't look like a harmless, collegial greeting. She didn't flat out deny it, but she pushed it away and claimed, "It's not what you think." When I then showed the pictures of them both outside the hotel, she went pale. She raised her hands and asked me to calm down. I also asked her about her other Facebook profile, and she looked truly panicked. She still tried to weasel out by saying it was some kind of bizarre experiment to communicate privately with colleagues, but in the end, she broke down. She admitted that she had been in a sexual relationship with Marcus for almost a year, that he did not know she was married, and that she hadn't intended to hurt me. She described it as an adventure that became a way for her to let out other sides of herself that she felt did not fit into our everyday life. I remember cornering her with a series of questions I had written down on a piece of paper. Among others. How long has this been going on? What does he give you that I don't? Have you ever felt guilty? Do you still love me? Have you told him that you love him? Have you used protection when you've been intimate? Do you plan on leaving me for him? Why did you lie for so long and how could you be so cold? Is this just a physical attraction or something deeper? Do you even want to continue our marriage after all this? I repeated them over and over, and she tried to answer, but the words were vague and half-choked. On question 4, "Do you still love me?" she said, "Yes, of course I do, but I also love the life I've built over there. I never wanted you to find out." It was as if she couldn't comprehend the enormous shock it was for me. On question 5, "Have you told him that you love him?" she answered, "Not exactly, not literally. But I think she lied. I am quite sure she had told him, maybe many times." I was so upset that I started shaking, and I said that if she didn't tell me everything, I would contact Marcus personally and show him the evidence. Because he was probably completely unaware that this woman was married. She burst into tears and begged me not to. She said she would do anything to make me forgive her. I sat there silently, just looking at her. All these years we had had together, all the love I believed was certain, suddenly it felt like an illusion. Because how can you build up a parallel identity and maintain a relationship for an entire year without even feeling that you're committing a terrible betrayal against your husband? I couldn't take it in. The following weeks were a nightmare for me. Anna insisted that she wanted to keep me, that she had rediscovered her love for me when she saw how close she was to losing me. I couldn't even understand the reasoning. Her desperate attempts to get me to stay felt misplaced and selfish. She agreed to stop seeing Marcus, but I doubted she would stick to that. She suggested couples therapy, but I felt the damage was too severe. Part of me reasoned that she had already deceived me for a whole year and created a secret Facebook profile. How could I ever trust her again? If it had been a single misstep one night when she was drunk, okay, that's terrible too, but it's something completely different from maintaining a parallel relationship over such a long period. Eventually, I made the decision to divorce her. I was then 35, she was 39, and our marriage was, as I saw it, irreparably broken. She cried and begged me to change my mind, but I stood firm. I contacted a lawyer, and we started the process. It was fairly quick, since we had no children and our home was in my name, so although we needed to divide certain assets, it wasn't that complicated. I also decided to inform Marcus. I am not proud of that part, but I felt he deserved to know the truth. I emailed him photos of me and Anna from our wedding and wrote, "She is my wife. She never told you she was married." I think you should know this. I actually got a response from him in which he was shocked, apologized, and wrote that he had no idea. He also wrote that he was sorry for the situation and that he had believed Anna was single. I thanked him for his honesty and moved on. It was a painful time. My self-image was shattered. I had gone from being a proud husband to feeling like a deceived fool. My friends supported me, but many of them asked, "How could you not have seen the signs earlier? And why didn't you do something?" I probably did see the signs but didn't want to believe them. Anna tried periodically to contact me, saying she still loved me and that she had never intended to ruin anything. I sometimes agreed to talk, but as soon as we sat down, I felt my whole body rejecting her. I couldn't look her in the eye without thinking of the lies, how she could so easily play the happy wife in front of me while leading a completely different life in the other city. She talked about adventure and excitement, but it felt like she was just rationalizing a long-term infidelity. She had to plan and carry out the trips, maintain contact with Marcus, lie about her evening meetings. A massive web of lies. I believe that on some level, she did love me. I suspect her adventure was about a kind of thrill, an extra dimension of life she was missing. But in my view, it was more a confirmation that she did not value our love very highly. I understand that a relationship can become routine, but there are better ways to deal with it than cheating on your partner for a year. And when I think of how she coldly deleted messages, created a new Facebook profile, and deliberately kept me in the dark, all empathy I might have had for her disappears. So I went ahead with the divorce. It was tough, but I had made up my mind. We signed the papers, and about 6 months later we were officially divorced. After all the legal details were settled, I cut off contact with her. She sent some emails occasionally, but I did not reply. I tried instead to start over. It was a long journey. I went to a therapist on my own to talk through my emotional meltdown. I learned a lot about myself during that period. I learned that you can never be 100% sure you know another person, no matter how close you think you are. I also learned that there is strength in setting a boundary. I do not accept this, and therefore it ends here. Some say one should try to forgive, but in my case, it felt impossible. Maybe someone else in the same situation could have given the marriage another chance, but I felt it was so fundamentally treacherous that I could never trust her again. Now it has been 10 years since then. I am 45 now and have a new life. I have been living with a new partner for several years, and she knows about my background. We have been open from the start about each of our histories, and it feels incredibly good not to keep anything hidden. I have had no contact with Anna for many, many years. I have no idea where she is in life, how her career has developed, or whether she ended up with Marcus in the end. The last I heard, 7 or 8 years ago, was that she had moved, but that's all I know. So why am I sharing this? Because when I read about men, and women, who suddenly discover similar secret double lives, my memories come flooding back. I remember how I went from being in love and trusting, to becoming suspicious and then bitterly betrayed. For me, it ended with a breakup. Others might choose to stay and try to repair. No decision is right for everyone, but in my case, the divorce was inevitable. I could not live with the thought that my wife, the person I loved most in the world, had lied to me for such a long time. It felt almost like psychopathic behavior, even though she was obviously not a psychopath in the medical sense. She was probably just a person with a strong urge to explore excitement, and she ignored the consequences. I'm not saying you should pack your bags as soon as you discover infidelity. But I'm saying that if you discover that your partner is maintaining a long-term affair, building a parallel identity, and consistently lying to you, then it's something much deeper than a misstep. It is a conscious strategy to have their cake and eat it too. And such ruthlessness testifies to a deep lack of respect and love. You are not a bad person if you don't want to stay in such a relationship. No one should have to forgive something they cannot live with. To the man who wrote his post saying he suspects his wife, or girlfriend, has a parallel relationship, if you see the signs with your own eyes, if you find evidence, don't be afraid to seek the truth. But be prepared for the truth to possibly crush you. I suggest that once you know what has happened, you ask yourself, am I willing to forgive this and work on rebuilding trust? If the answer is no, then it's your clear choice to leave. If the answer is yes, demand total transparency and be ready for a long process, possibly with professional help. No one can promise it will work, but that is a path you can try. In my case, I was not willing to live with the thought that my wife would probably never be honest with me. I also felt that she had hurt me so deeply that I had no love left to give. I was mostly apathetic and sad. So I chose divorce, and in retrospect I think it was right for me. I know she asked for forgiveness and promised to end the affair with Marcus. But the fact that she had first said she loved him, then denied it, then changed her answers. It was too much. Her lack of genuine remorse at the beginning, where she was rather afraid of being exposed, was a big part of my decision. She was more worried about the consequences for herself than for me and our marriage. She cried and regretted it, but I didn't feel she regretted the betrayal. She regretted being caught. Finally, I want to say this: life goes on. It hurts, terribly, but you will come out on the other side. Today I'm in a relationship that is healthy, filled with respect and trust. Sometimes I can still feel a sting when I think about Anna and what she did, but it has faded. I see it as a life experience that shaped me. And when I see someone else go through a similar situation, I'm happy to provide advice or at least solidarity. Because infidelity can cause such a feeling of loneliness, you feel ashamed, stupid, humiliated, sad, and angry all at once. If I were to give a few summary pieces of advice: don't hesitate to find out the truth. If you have strong suspicions, look into it, confront, dare to face the facts. Lies are worse than the truth, however painful it may be. Be clear about your boundaries. Once you know the truth, think carefully about what you are willing to forgive. Long-term infidelity with conscious deception is not the same as a one-time drunken affair. Both are wrong, but the degree of betrayal is different. Don't expect it to be like before. Even if you forgive and go to therapy, the relationship can become different. Sometimes you make it, sometimes not. Seek help from friends and professionals. You are in shock when this happens. Family, friends, and therapists can help you sort out your feelings. You are not obliged to stay in a relationship just because the person loves you. Love without respect and trust is not a sustainable foundation. I once loved Anna, but she did not respect me. I realized that love isn't enough when the betrayal is that big. My post became long, but I hope it can shed light on how such a situation can develop and why I chose to get a divorce. I'm sharing my story so that no one in this forum thread will feel alone or think it's strange to leave someone you love because of infidelity. Infidelity is not just a physical affair, it is also a brutal lie that destroys trust, and without trust, there is no stable relationship. To you who wrote that you might be facing a similar choice, I hope you can make a decision you can live with. There are no winners in a story like this, but you deserve a life free from constant suspicion and self-doubt. Take care of yourself, dare to be honest with yourself, and remember that there is life beyond this trauma, even if it doesn't feel like it right now. 10 years later, I can attest, you can build something new, feel joy again, and find a love that is both deep and mutual. I wish you and everyone else in this thread a good future, regardless of your choices. You are not alone, and even the darkest moments in life can be overcome. That's what I take away from this story. Take care of yourselves.
If you liked this story, please subscribe and give us a thumbs up. It helps a lot, and you won't miss out on any future stories. Take care and live your best life.